we're recording now, that robotic
Yeah.
voice. So yeah, I'm in private practice and I typically see kids for EMDR. And I also specialize in maternal mental health. So I see a lot of women and children in my practice. Prior to that, I was a social worker starting off in child welfare. So for the first 5 years of my career, it was in child welfare. And then for the second 5 years in like public sector, I was in school-based mental health. So I worked in the school systems providing mental health to children in the schools. So shout out to any school therapists who are here today. And I started my private practice when I became a clinical supervisor, I would say in 2018 for the school district, because I just love still doing the direct client work. And then the pandemic hit, and that's when I fully went over to private practice and focusing on writing this book. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Rodham and Tiffany, for inviting me to speak and share about this workbook.
Yeah, we're really excited to hear more. So can you share a little bit about what kind of inspired you to write this book and how, like, just I'm curious about the whole process of, from an idea to actual having this in the world.
Yeah, well, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. So when I got the basic training, as many of you might have experienced, the basic training was really geared towards adults. There's like a really small, tiny, brief overview on how to do it and adapt it for kids. And then there was like not so cute, happy face, like set skills that was probably available at the training. I was like, oh, this is like a not very warm, friendly, engaging that I would find the kids I was working with at that time engaging with. So after basic training, I was so inspired. I drank the EMDR juice. I experienced it myself. So it's like, wow, this is magic. It works. And I started searching for tools for kids, searching for worksheets because I was in the school system at that time. I'm traveling from school to school. My play therapy stuff is in like a little grocery Trader Joe's bag. And, I'm doing therapy out of janitor closets in some places. So
Yeah.
I had to be really creative. And I just started doing the phase 3 essentially on whiteboards or on paper and on the back of like math tests for kids. And just as a beginner, just being newly trained, I wanted to get it right. I wanted to make sure that I got all those components in phase 3 and not forget it. But then the kids started getting creative. I was like, yeah, why don't you just draw it? And why don't you, let's do a little scale. We'll do a happy face. And they came in and they started asking, like, can I do a donut scale? Can we use donuts today? Can we use a unicorn? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So I can't take all the credit for some of the things and some of the ideas in this workbook, because truly it was a collaboration with all the kids that I worked with. And instead of taking the time to draw it out every session, I went on Canva and I started drawing and making copies and printing my own. And so it's funny, I should gather like my original worksheets that would probably be funny years down the line. And I just developed and I consulted, and Sherilyn Peachy Rowland, who was my first consultant getting my hours after basic training, she's like, Christine, this is magic. This is gold. You need to copyright this. You need to do something. How many of these worksheets do you have? And I told Sherilyn, I don't know, like 50. And she's like, what? You need to do something with this. And that really inspired me. The pandemic hit and that idea stuck in my head that, whoa, this could be something more. So I made it initially available on Etsy. I just made worksheets, put them up for like $2 or $3, $5 or more for like a workbook if it was more than just one thing. And the community, the EMDR community, people who were getting trained and focused on children, they started purchasing, they started buying, they started messaging me. And I would say that's another collaborative part of it. Some EMDR clinicians would message me on Etsy and say, hey, do you have this? Even internationally, I've had people reach out and say, hey, can you translate this in French? Or can you translate this in Spanish? I need it in, this other language. I'm like, wow, I don't have it in multiple languages yet, but that's still on my to-do list. I'm only one person. So yeah, that's how all the ideas have been created. And when I got the publishing deal with Pezzy, really the team there helped me hone in on making the workbook what it is and what you see today. Like they really helped to, I think, fine tune what I already had. And
Yeah.
it's just been so wonderful working with them and putting out this product. I'm so proud of it.
Yeah, I love it. So I just want to show our viewers that for those of you who haven't purchased the workbook yet, it's so colorful. It's just full of, just very engaging tools that you get on the workbook. And I think what I love most, Christine, about that is that the kids help you develop it. So basically it's a collaboration, it's a collaborative approach, and you got feedback from your end user, if you will.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I love that you mentioned that, because that was one of the first things I was going to ask is like, how did you come up with like a pizza sud scale or the waves or like but they're so fun. I had it just sitting on my coffee table and my kids were like, what's that? And I was like, well, it's for work. And they're like, it doesn't look like it's for work. It looks like it's for us. And like had so much fun and wanted to do the stoplight and all of that. And I think you're right. Like we get so little for kids. I think I got told, well, you could use a puppet for eye movements and you could write out some negative beliefs, but like there wasn't really anything beyond that. I was wondering if you could maybe share some, because the pages for even just preparation, like how you explain, being able to share for people that haven't gotten the book yet of kind of how you introduce to kids, EMDR, some of the things that you explain, fight, flight, freeze, all of that so beautifully at a level that kids can understand.
Yes. I think just backing up, all of the EMDR.
Sorry, I think I froze up there for a moment. So I was wondering, like, can you kind of speak to just for the people in here that aren't getting much of how you introduce EMDR for littles?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that when I started looking for EMDR resources, there's a lot of textbooks and chapter books written for how to do EMDR with kids, but the book is not for kids. The book is directed towards professionals, right? Master level, graduate level, clinicians who want to figure out how to do it with kids. It's very academic. I didn't find very many things that were created for the child. And that was my goal. Like, if this is EMDR for the child, like the book needs to be written for the child, not written for the professional, not written for the parent. And that's how we have to approach our lens in working with children, that we need to we need their language, right? We need to use their language. We need to use play in order to, and we need to use concepts that they understand to explain this really complex therapy, and why it works and how it works. And so again, I would say I would use whatever my clients' interests were to explain it to them. So I know Anna Gomez has really great explanations for the getting out the yuck and the stomach, and you're pooping out the bad stuff, the digestive system explanation. And then for teens, she had the smartphone or like the computer files explanation. And so really just adapting, how do you explain this concept to kids based on what their interests are? I don't know what kid doesn't love pizza. Like my child like is asking for pizza and mac and cheese every day. So, I using things like what is this pizza scale? And just using things that are relatable to them, and using things like, I don't know what little boy is not obsessed with dump trucks and cars, right? I don't know what little girl doesn't love, there's so many other interests out there, but just I honed in on the ones that my kids tend to use the most and put those in the workbook. But yeah, I'm not sure if that answered all the questions. I think there are 2 questions.
Sorry, there's a lot in there. Yeah, I think just wondering, like, to give some kind of introduction, like how you would talk to younger kids about EMDR, just because it's something that's so lacking for most people who got trained to know how to do that.
Yeah. The basic one that I like to use with kids is, I know in original training, they use the train analogy. I don't know about you, but most kids don't travel on trains these days. Most kids do all the, and maybe they are on public transportation if they live in a city like area. So you could use a subway, you could use I'm in San Francisco, so if kids ride the BART or whatnot. But most kids have traveled in cars. Most kids have been in traffic. And so I like to explain, even the concept of like, how does EMDR work? I'm like, well, when you've been stuck in traffic before and there was kind of a roadblock or construction going on in the road, and it took you a really long time from your house to school, use things that they know. Like, don't say like getting to your house to like from point A to point B. That's like over their head. Use something that they actually know. Yeah, I've been late for school before because there was an accident and da, 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 da. Well, that's kind of what happens in our brain. When really scary, upsetting things happen, we can get all these roadblocks and traffic things that make it harder for us to get to a point where we think, feel, in our hearts and feel in our body, and make sense of it. And when I explain it that way to kids, they're like, I think there's a lot of roadblocks and traffic going on in my brain.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, let's figure it out. Right. Let's figure it out, and let's travel this road together.
I think that's beautiful. I also like, offering a lot of different options for how to do like the BLS, the bilateral, that goes beyond just having them sit still, because we know our littles don't want to just sit there and have that conversation all the time, but like incorporating the dance and the music.
Yeah, yes, the music, the movement. Kids need to move. It's not talk therapy. They're not sitting on a couch across from you. I don't even have a couch in my office. I have some chairs that are movable, but like it's a play space. I have floor pillows. I have yoga mats. I have, just my kids are coming in, and they are like sitting on the floor, and they're, grabbing things. And then I have musical instruments, and I'm not in my playroom right now. I'm in my home office, but offering that for kids. And just because you don't have a play therapy office, and if you don't have, that setting, you can do it in, like I said earlier, I used to work at a janitor offices on a school site. So movement, bringing things, a bouncy ball, a football, like kicking a soccer ball back and forth, going out and even using the playground and using the swing to do the bilaterals. You could play music on your phone on Spotify, and have the child just stand up and sway back and forth. There's just so many creative ideas that you could implement bilateral movement with kids. It's not just eye movement, so be creative with it.
Yeah, I
I
love
think those are
that creativity. I'm curious about your background, Christine. Do you have background in lay therapy? I know we talked about before we added our audience and started recording that you talked with Jackie Flynn. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what influenced you, what are your influences to be creative with your EMDR work with kids?
Yeah, I think just naturally, I've always been a really creative person. I have a lot of different interests. Like I love art and music and drama. Like I was the type of kid who I was a band nerd. I was a drama like nerd. I love music and all the expressive arts. And I love play. Something that I've spoken with Jackie about is, I also came from a background like first generation, person in my family to get a master's, to just get higher education. And, my parents, English was not my first language. My parents, English was not easy for them. And so I had to figure out things on my own. So I put myself through undergrad and graduate school as a fairy. And when I say that, so I was a child's performer. I used to do face painting, magic shows, puppet shows, story time, music time with kids on the weekends for their birthday. And I had glitter like spilling out of my car and spilling out of my my work bag for the weekends. And it was an awesome time in my life. And I did it like literally for 6 years on the weekends to put myself through school. And at the time I thought, I'm doing this to put myself through school, to become a therapist, like a child, like get my real career. And little did I know, as I started my real career in social work and working with children, that all those things, all those creative things I carried with me. Like I still have face paints in my office. I still have balloon animals in my office, and I make little balloon animals for my kids, and we use that in the therapy. And it's like, this is a lion and this is a puppy. And we do sword fight for the bilaterals with balloon animals. And I still do the story times. I have lots of books and I have the music. So, and there's lots and lots of glitter. So, I think that that's just been a part of me. And that creative piece, I think everyone has it. Everyone has like what they like whether it's art, music, drama, theater, and bringing that into the therapy that you do with children. Know what your power is, know what your superpower is, and bring it into the session with kids.
I love that. I think we all have our backgrounds and influences. And I think for many people, it's kind of hard to integrate your own personal influences. And I think this is so important, right? Like you brought something unique that you love and you are good at, and you brought it into the therapy room. And, I'm sure that your kid clients love you, but now we have this, what a gift to the world, thanks to all this work that you've done before you even became a therapist.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I was wondering, because you have an awesome section in back of the book as well with caregivers. And I'm wondering if you can speak to how you incorporate parents and caregivers into EMDR therapy, kind of their role.
Yeah. If you're going to be working with children, you're going to work with the parents or the caregivers. And I think the best work is to work collaboratively with the parents and caregivers. And I know that it just depends on the child. It depends on the family. It depends on what's going on. Well, you need to obviously do your assessment, do phase 1, make sure, that the parent is safe and ready and willing. But I always approach it from the lens that it's inevitable. It's inevitable. It's needed. You can only do so much in one therapy session. The child or the teen is going to return back to their home environment. And if the same patterns and behaviors are unchanged, you can only expect so much healing. So you really do need to do that extra work to get, on the same page and get some buy-in and get some engagement from the parents. It really depends on the age of the child as well. So for a very young child who doesn't have the language and doesn't have the tools to express what happened to me, I'm going to lean on the parents and the caregivers to come in and try the storytelling technique that I adapted and created the worksheet for from Joan Lovett. And there's other techniques as well where you can engage with really young children and caregivers, but I would probably do something different for a teenager, right? And the way I engage a parent, I might not do as many conjoint sessions, or the conjoint sessions are a little bit more planned for specific things, versus for a very young child. I always have the parents in the session with me.
And so you mentioned it was another something I have never seen. That it was my story, and you were talking about how adapted for parents as well, but to help with some of that history taking and create something that is less threatening, I think, for kids. For those that haven't bought the book, it's kind of like a Mad Lib. So once upon a time, there was a child named, and then they fill in their name. The child was blank years old, and go through and then start labeling good memories, which give you something to resource off of, and then the negative memories that kind of help us start a treatment plan. Like, I just thought that was such a brilliant way to make it accessible.
Yes. Yes. And I thank you, Tiffany, for saying that. That was really my goal in making this workbook accessible, like non-threatening, colorful, like kind of fun to do. I mean, I had dads, who are like a little bit more, oh, I don't think my child really needs therapy. It's my wife or the mom who thinks, is being sensitive about this. And I give them this, and they're like, that was actually kind of fun. I like doing that page. And then I'll have dad come in and read the story, and do the conjoint session with the bilaterals for that exercise. And there's just been so much more attunement and attachment in those sessions for some of the dads that I've had the honor to work with to come in and say, oh, well, to me, it wasn't a big deal, but I could see how it was a big deal for my child now.
Yeah.
And that's so meaningful and so rich that, like, we forget as adults, like, oh, well, that doesn't seem like a big problem, but it's a big problem in the child's world, in the child's eyes. That's a big deal.
I think that's definitely a hurdle with parents, is getting to that place of like, it's what the kid's felt experiences, even if to you in your adult perspective it's not a big deal, even as a child it probably was a big deal to you then, and like honoring that it just is what it is, to be able to support them through that.
Yeah.
So I want to, in a few minutes, to open the conversation to our live audience to ask you questions directly, Christine, if that's okay. I just want to thank you for your generosity. So one of you just hang tight with us for about 15-20 more minutes, and one of you will get a free signed copy of the workbook from Christine. And you also had Christine, a really nice and generous offer to provide consultation. So 2 options. You want to talk a little bit about that, and maybe after that, talk a little bit about a free webinar that you have going on soon.
Yes. So a lucky winner is going to get a copy of the workbook today. Also, another lucky winner is going to have the opportunity to choose between an individual consultation one-on-one with me, or I offer child focus and teen focus drop-in consultation groups every other Wednesday. I'm on the West Coast in California, so Pacific time, it's 10 a.m. to 12 noon. So it's every other Wednesday. You can go to my website and sign up for the ones if you're interested that work for your schedule, and just drop in whenever you feel like you want some different perspectives and some consultation on your child cases. So I'm excited for that. And yes, so next month I'm going to be doing a free webinar with Pezzy, and it's exactly what we were just talking about. It's going to be EMDR with kids, essentially better together, how to do some approaches for doing EMDR with kids and their grownups. Yeah, and
Nice.
let me put the link in, because you can actually, the registration is open and you can register now. I think 1,000 people are already registered.
Oh, wow.
So I'm getting a little nervous, but it's really, really great content. I can't wait to do the webinar and share the interventions and my approach to how I do conjoint EMDR.
Well, first of all, I'm glad we're giving you some opportunity to practice before you hit, 1,000 people. So we have, a smaller audience, but still live and fun. And then, Christine, do you want to share also the link to your website? So,
Oh, sure, yeah.
and there was also, so you have an Etsy shop, right?
I do, yes. I'll put that in there too.
Yeah, because there was a question in the chat. Alexa said, I have this and have not been able to check it out fully, but looking forward to diving in. I have not seen any links to print from PDFs. Are there, or do we just, put it on a copying machine?
Yeah, so since the book was published through Pezzy, all the material is copyrighted. So it's the workbook that's available right now, and then the digital copy that's available is the Kindle. However, I will say I worked with Pezzy to make certain pages available as a PDF format. So if you subscribe to my website, you get an instant download of those free downloads. And then I'm going to actually be releasing at the Pezzy webinar next month some additional pages that will be in PDF format. So if you sign up and register for the webinar next month, you'll also get a couple more PDF format pages. So that is what's going to be available moving forward. But with that said, like I shared in my story, this workbook originated from a lot of these worksheets that I developed and I have available on my Etsy shop as well as my webpage. I will say some of them, like I haven't been able to work on them because as soon as I signed the deal with Pezzy, it was like one of those things where you cannot create any other EMDR materials because everything was going to basically go in here.
Right.
So I haven't put out new EMDR material in my Etsy shop just because I wanted it all to be in here. And some exciting news is that my publisher, Pezzy, loves this so much. We are in talks about volume 2.
Ooh.
So more worksheets, more resources, lots of ideas to come. And I'm in the brainstorming phase right now. So if you're a child EMDR therapist and you're looking in this and you're like, I would love to see a worksheet developed for this. I'm like a sponge at this point. I am just in that creative zone. And so if you have good ideas, something that you want to come to fruition, or maybe something you want to see in volume 2, let me know.
We'll definitely do. So would volume 2 be also focused on kids?
I believe that's still like in the works too. Like if we want to do like maybe one more geared towards teens, or if we want to do one with kids again, but with different worksheets. So it's still, nothing's like set in stone, nothing's concrete. It's just like the ideas
bouncing ideas. I love that. Yeah. And this is where, you can use our community. That's what we do, just bouncing idea, asking questions. So I love that. I want to encourage our people who are alive to turn their videos on and audio and just ask Christine some questions, or you can type it in the chat box. And we will do the draw in a few minutes.
Oh, I love seeing everyone's faces. Hello. Hi, everyone.
Not a lot of questions. Where's Julie? I saw Julie here. Come on, Julie. There you are. Hey, Julie. So, any questions for Christine? Oh, I think Heather is trying to talk, but is muted.
No, I didn't have any questions, but
Oh.
just admire your inspiration and obviously your love of young kids and your knowledge about them was very accurate. I've worked with them for years also in the pre-K settings in schools. So I was excited to hear you speak about that. So thank you.
Heather.
Okay, yeah.
There's a vote for volume 2 to be teens.
Yeah.
You know what, that idea actually, I'm torn about it because I don't know, for those of you who work with teens, the teens I work with do not want to go to therapy, sit down and work on a workbook. That's like the last thing they want to do. If you're actually attuned with some of my teens, they're like, I don't want to do school or like do a workbook, right? They want to like listen to music and do something more relaxing. So I don't know. I'm sure there's lots of teens that would enjoy it. I think in my experience, it's the professionals that want the workbook for teens and not the teens that want the workbook for themselves. That's just my approach. And I don't want to force teens to do something that they don't want to do. You're not going to get anything out of them when you're like, hey, do this workbook, because it said teen on it. It says EMDR for teens. So this should be for you.
So I did have one other question real fast before I go to the drawing. As someone who I also I was part-time outpatient, part-time school-based in middle school, but I have had this question come up in consultations that I've done with consultees. What do you see? A lot of people feel like they can't do EMDR in schools with kids. And I'm wondering kind of your thoughts on that and how, if there's any things that you shift when it has been school-based versus outpatient or.
Yes. So I get this question a lot in consultation, especially for those who work in the school setting. You have to make a really good phase 1, make a good treatment plan, and you have to do really good phase 2 before you can do all the other phases. And so I have done EMDR successfully in the school. I have done big T's in the school, but I have to plan for it. I have to do all the resourcing. I have to get the school staff on board, right? I'm on in those IEP meetings with the school staff, and we can add a plan in the child's IEP for longer therapy sessions and advocate for that. Also, making the time for it, and this is something that you learn in basic training, is like, don't do an EMDR session when your client has a big meeting or something in their life that's going on. You need to do the same thing for the child. So if they have a big test in their next class or they need something, you're not going to do the big T. So here are some things and tips that I have done and would give. So I will, with permission, obviously release of information, coordinate and collaborate. It's a team approach. It's a multidisciplinary approach. When you're working in the schools, you need like the teachers, the principals, like the aides, they need to know like, hey, the child's going to come to a session. And they might be a little bit dysregulated, or they might be in session a little longer than usual today. I'm not going to take them out of their core subjects, right? I might be taking them out of like PE or like, something. I try not even to take them out of a subject that they like, right? If they really like art, and I'm like, well, I'm going to pull you out of art today so that you could do EMDR. They're not going to like you very much.
Not interested. Yeah.
If you're taking away their recess time, they don't want to come to EMDR therapy with you. A lot of the kids I worked with were also in the after school program, so their parents wouldn't pick them up until 5 p.m. anyway. So I might arrange my session to be the last period or the last hour of the school day, knowing that this might transition into after school. Why do kids and teens like this? I don't need to go back to class and my classmates see that I've been crying. Right. I can make arrangements and I can make a plan with the parents, the caregivers, the after school people, the front office staff that, hey, this child's going to be doing a hard therapy session today. They don't even necessarily need to know I'm doing EMDR. But I might the school counselor maybe it's like, hey, they can come to my office and they can just chill in my room and until their parent comes, and they don't need to go to the after school program today. Right. So I think it's just collaborating, knowing what your resources are in that school setting, who are your support people, because I have worked in schools and school districts where the other, professionals that you're collaborating with don't understand or don't really get it. So just work with that and work with what you have and be smart and creative about it.
That sounds good.
Love it.
Can we take a quick picture with just
Yes.
let me just do that
Much harder
really
on my phone.
quickly. Yeah, you're good, Tiffany. Thank you. Okay, picture taken. So we are going.
Rhoda.
Yeah, I'm gonna just make sure I save it, and then we'll do the draw for the people who are with us live. Okay. All right. So we have the names. I'm going to share my screen. So the first draw will be for free copy of the book. Some people left, so I want to make sure that it's the people who are with us. So this is for free copy of the EMDR workbooks for kids, signed by Christine. And let's see, I'm always bad at adding drama. All right. And Vokia, I hope I pronounced your name right. You joined us a little late, but if you're still here, unmute yourself and say hi. And you can reach out to Christine directly, either through the Zoom chat or through our EMDR learning community. There's a chat feature, so you can do that.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I will send a message later to Christine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have my camera.
Yeah.
But maybe sometime later I will switch it on in some minutes. Don't worry. Okay.
Yeah.
But I am listening to you.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen again. And that would be for either in person, right, Christine? They can choose between not in person, but individual consultation, or to join 2 hours of one of your groups on every other Wednesday.
Yeah.
All right. So can someone add drama? I'm really bad at it. I need to work on my adding drama. Let's see. All right. And that, oh my God, Alexa.
Woo!
Is Alexa still here with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yay, Alexa. Hi.
Congratulations.
My book, so I'm excited.
Yay. I'm
Cool.
so excited to have you.
I'm sorry.
I'm so excited to connect and have you in group or individual and consult.
Me too.
Great.
Thank you. So do I just reach out to you?
Yeah, just reach out to me on the EMDR community, send me a chat, and then we'll figure something out.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, Christine, thank you so much for your time and for writing this wonderful workbook. And we will be in touch.
We will be in touch. Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you so much.
everyone, for being here.
Thank you.
Everyone, I so appreciate you.